imagined on the PlayStation 4. At least as far as the art is concerned, the game is actually using the original code base from the PlayStation 2 game in order to do everything possible to preserve the experience. Improvements, however, come in the way of new art assets, the ability to play in 60 frames per second in 1080p, 30 at 4K, and it's Shadow of the Colossus. We've been talking about this for years. It's not just a remaster, it's the whole thing as a modern game, or as close to as is possible. Number 19 is Duel Universe, which is the latest in the search for something that is actually what No Man's Sky said it would be. This one I think actually comes off as fairly unique as it describes the things that it's going to do and how they're going to do them. They've created a new server technology called a continuous single shard cluster, which supposedly is going to make it so that there will not be different servers. Everyone will exist in the same exact Duel Universe. Oh my god, it's at the title! Plot of the game goes as such: it's 2027, there's a neutron star in collision course through the Earth's solar system, they have 500 years to leave Earth, get the heck out, find planets to inhabit, and the rest takes place in Unreal Engine 2. It's rendered on voxels, so you're actually going to be able to physically change things, and it's supposedly going to be moddable as well. It actually sounds really interesting. Number 18 is Biomutant, a game that combines the open world with the visual sensibilities of a 90s mascot platformer and a combat system that looks very crisp, very fast, very arcadey, and it's a game that looks like it's going to be a fairly interesting and unique version of the open world game. And while it may look a little bit nostalgic, there's something specifically fresh about it that I can't quite pin down yet. I'm sure we're going to end up talking about it a lot more this year. It's one of the ones that I personally care about a little bit more, so it's definitely one that I'm really aching to play. Number 17 is Days Gone. Again, we've seen some pretty interesting stuff in the form of a couple of encounters specifically. We have seen so many zombies on screen at once, it's ridiculous. In a lot of ways, it sort of takes the aesthetic of Season 2, Season 3 of The Walking Dead, the more wilderness-oriented seasons, and ratchets the zombies up to horde level. The controls don't look like they would be out of place in an Uncharted game, and the zombie numbers look like they wouldn't be out of place in the Brad Pitt World War Z adaptation. Not that that was good, it's just that one scene was cool. As far as zombies go, this is probably the one that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. It has the potential to be great, and I really hope it lives up to it. Number 16 is Shenmue III, a game literally almost 2 decades in the making. Shenmue was originally planned as a 4-part story in which 4 games would take place. I'm kind of hoping that it's a trilogy because I'm kind of in the area of wanting closure on the story. Not that I don't want to get through this game, I really do, and I'm sure when I do, I'll be like, I sure hope there's a 4th game. But it's just been a really long time, and this game is so influential to so many different games. You can be playing something else and go, I'm reminded of Shenmue. I wonder where the story goes. It could get delayed, it's Shenmue, but I'm gonna keep some optimism on this one. It's something I really want. Number 15, Darksiders III is an open world action adventure, kinda hack and slash, little bit deeper, but not too much. It's still that fun kind of arcade fighting action that's intended to take place parallel to the events of Darksiders 1 and 2. You'll be playing as Fury, the sister of War, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, who has been tasked with hunting down and killing the 7 deadly sins. It's also cool because the founder of Vigil Games, the original developer of these games, started a company called Gunfire Games after Vigil went under. A large amount of the staff that worked at Vigil works at Gunfire, so it's very much still being developed by the same people. The first 2 are great, and I have high expectations for this one. Number 14 is Skull and Bones, Ubisoft's standalone Assassin's Creed Black Flag naval battle game. Now that's summing it up very, very quick. You know the naval battles from Black Flag. You know how they're definitely the high point of the game. This is a game that revolves entirely around those naval battles. It is meant to be regarded as an open world tactical action game. Over the course of the game, you'll customize your pirate captain, you'll get in big naval fights in quote-unquote disputed waters, and you can probably do a lot of things that would be considered unsafe were they real, like ramming other ships. Oh, I'm gonna be ramming ships. Number 13 is The Crew 2, an open world racing game. And what's particularly cool about it is the open world is a somewhat scaled down United States, meaning you can drive around the whole country. Now, it's definitely not going to be the size of the country because that would be very boring. I don't know if you've ever driven through Wyoming, but don't. Now, yes, there's a campaign, yes, you can move around and progress through it, but really what I'm interested in is just how sandboxy this game seems like it's going to be. There's planes, there's boats, there's bikes, and of course there are cars, and you can switch between them without losing momentum, so expect ridiculousness. Speaking of ridiculousness, they do that world-bending thing from Inception, where the world, like, goes in on itself. And I'm not gonna say I understand how or why, but it's gonna be in the game, and I have a feeling that is going to be fun. It just kind of seems like it's embracing a sort of ridiculousness that I didn't expect it to. I mean, the crew was kind of good, but not great, and in a lot of times it felt like you were really just going and going and going. And let's be honest, that loot system from the last game was just tiresome at best. But this actually kind of has me excited. Number 12 is Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is basically an open world RPG in which you assume a character and go around a very, very realistic map, doing combat, doing talking, doing stories, doing trading, all of these things. And there's no fantasy element. Now, we don't really ever get games that are stories like this. I mean, we get simulators, but they're actually going for accuracy, and assuming they don't make that boring, I mean, we could be in for sort of an entirely new kind of RPG where instead of trying to do something that's just utterly impossible, like magic, they try to do something that's utterly impossible to experience, like history, if that makes any sense. Like, even if this doesn't come out great, I'm interested in it, although I do kind of think it looks like it is going to come out great. Number 11 is the snow-filled survival game Praey for the Gods, in which you essentially have to fight exhaustion while also climbing these massive bosses with various weapons you find, and generally have a lot of agency and open-endedness as far as your approach. Honestly, this is a game that when described doesn't sound that special, but when you see it, you're like, oh wait, this is something different. Not just visually, but like the type of game it is goes a little bit beyond what we're used to. You have to deal with the cold, hunger, stamina, have to try to stay warm, and other than the snow, that describes a very large number of games, but the boss system in this just looks so interesting. You beat them by climbing them. Now, whether or not that actually turns out to be great, I don't know. I will be playing this for certain, though. Number 10 is Anthem, an action RPG set in an open world that specifically intends to go for a shared world concept with both single and cooperative multiplayer. Now, we don't know a lot about really any scenario stuff. We do know that one of the writers from Knights of the Old Republic is working on this game, which is cool. We've also seen some of the third-person gameplay, and a bit of the hub world. The hub world was experienced in first-person though, so I don't know if that was because they decided they wanted to show it that way, or if they default the gameplay elements differently. I don't know, but this game looks like it's going to be really, really big. It's kinda like Destiny, but it looks like it maybe has some of the stuff from Monster Hunter to Mass Effect sort of incorporated in it. It might be a really good combination of a few different kinds of games, and apparently there's going to be these huge world-changing storms that happen in it as well, and I just want to maybe experience that. It sounds like a good idea to me. Number 9 is Crackdown 3, and I am gonna say it. We've talked about Crackdown 3 for a very long time at this point. Every year you hear me say, I hope this is the year for Crackdown. And sometimes it feels like it's actually the year. They start saying things that make it sound like it's actually the year. And then it's not, because I'm doing this again. But it's also starting to get to the point where it's a little bit ridiculous. They keep promising it every year, but we don't get it. It's not like it's vaporware, because it keeps showing up places. They keep talking about it. Terry Crews is in it. But we still don't have an ironclad release date, so I am going to be cautious. Obviously, I'm going to get riled up when this game finally does happen, but for now, let's just say it's supposed to come out this year. Let's hope it does. I want to knock down some buildings. That's all. Number 8 is Sea of Thieves, an open world game in which you are going to be creating your own pirate narratives, basically. At least that's what they've been selling it as, sort of a create your own adventure pirate game in which you and friends can play together and end up fighting against other teams of friends as pirates. It's a shared world game, so supposedly there's going to be a lot of encounters between groups of players, and you can shoot yourself out of a cannon. And if you can, why wouldn't you? Number 7 is Monster Hunter World, which very much looks to be the Monster Hunter game. To me, it just looks absolutely just stunning to watch this game and action. I am so excited because Monster Hunter's fun as hell, but like been kind of more of a portable franchise in the United States. But this looks like the decked out huge version of hunting monsters in an open world. By the way, that's one of the selling points. They aren't going to be zoning up the game. It's just going to be this massive sprawling place filled with monsters. Some have expressed a little bit of concern about westernizing it. I'm not so sure I'm that worried about it. I think some of the stuff they may have done to westernize it orients more around being an open world game as opposed to a zoned up game, if that makes any sense. And there's some modern gaming conventions that frankly I think would work very good in Monster Hunter. How far will they go? We don't know just yet, but they've assured everybody it's going to be classic Monster Hunter gameplay, and I am very excited to see it looking like this. Number 6 is Kingdom Hearts 3, which we don't know for certain is going to be an absolute pure open world. It may be sort of an open world, or it may end up being some kind of hub world. Frankly, the whole thing is shrouded in mystery, but it's intended to be the biggest ever, so we're making the assumption that could mean some element of open world. Now, Kingdom Hearts is obviously an action RPG that has influenced action RPGs pretty significantly, and it's also taken its sweet time, released a million in-betweens the main 3 games, and frankly some sort of closure to this story would be interesting. I don't know that I would actually want it to be the last Kingdom Hearts, but I am ready to find out kind of where Sora lands. Number 5 is State of Decay 2, which is meant to sort of feel community-oriented, or maybe to put that better, group-oriented. It's an open-world zombie survival game that is intending to place a lot more emphasis on cooperation. And I think that that's good because we've had a lot of them that haven't really, and people sort of inject their own types of cooperation in. In this version, people will be traveling together, fighting zombies together, crafting together, etc., etc. And the thing that I would say more than anything is that State of Decay is great, and hearing that they're attempting to expand the gameplay in such a manner that it feels more group-driven makes it seem like it's going to be a more fun game, especially if you have friends that like State of Decay. Number 4 is Ni No Kuni 2. Now, I don't know if you recall the last Ni No Kuni game, but it was a fairly unique experience, although systemically speaking fairly straightforward and brought in kind of just some sort of monster collector-y type stuff. And although the battles were fun, they got old after a while. Not sold it was unplayable, it just could have been a little better. While Ni No Kuni 2 does not have direct involvement from Studio Ghibli this time around, they do have what appears to be an interesting concept for a battle system that relies less on the more tropey sort of monster collector type stuff than a single melee-oriented combat style that kinda looks like it borders on action RPG, but not fully. Now, despite the combat system not being as good as it could have been, I loved the first game, and I'm pretty darn excited that there even is a second game. If you're worried about Studio Ghibli not being involved, they really only animated the cutscenes from the previous one. The story was done by Level 5, and they're doing it again for this time, and it retains that kind of Ghibli-esque look, so I'm not worried, and this is a game that I'll probably even forgive some minor flaws in just because it's so, like, enjoyable. It makes you feel like a kid playing it. Number 3 is SpiderMan for the PS4. Let's be honest, if you get web slinging right, the city could be really garbage and it'd still be fun, but it looks like they've got pretty much all the elements of a great standard open world game, in addition to also being Spider-Man. It's developed by Insomniac Games, which you may know from Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet the Clank, or Sunset Overdrive even. I think Sunset Overdrive is a much bigger cue towards what we're going to get with Spider-Man than anything else they've done in the past. But they've always been a quality developer, and I'm really looking forward to this game, because the last time they did a Spider-Man open world game right, it was phenomenal, and that wasn't with Insomniac Games. Number 2 is Far Cry 5, and good lord, how do you even talk about this game? I promise you this is going to be one of those games that just causes controversy after controversy. There's a certain sect on the internet that will bend the story of the game to its will. Well, maybe more than one sect of people on the internet will do that. But honestly, I kind of like the idea of it. It's sort of an American cult story, where the cult is also a militia. You could sum up the game's story and characters as some people saw BioShock Infinite and wanted to do that, but without all of the impossible stuff, and also without any money. You'll be dealing with them with the typical Far Cry conventions, including the ability to tame the wild animals like in Far Cry Primal, and even a fishing mechanic. This one's gonna be interesting, folks. And finally, number 1 is Red Dead